Your arrogant boss getting murdered by ice zombies is bad, but him coming back to strangle you is definitely worse. 3 nights watchmen are freezing in the haunted forest, tracking dead wildlings. The rich kid in charge refuses to turn back. Suddenly, the bodies vanish, and these tall, creepy ice dudes pull up. The boss actually steps up to fight, but his steel sword literally shatters against their weird crystal blade. They butcher him, while a scout named Will hides up a tree. Hours later, Will climbs down to grab the broken sword as proof. But when he turns around, his dead boss is standing right there with glowing blue eyes, ready to choke him out. Jon Snow literally saved a pack of mythical apex predators from death by using basic math. Little Bran Stark just watched his dad execute a guy, but the ride home gets way crazier. They stumble on a dead giant direwolf and her newborn pups. The adults want to kill the babies immediately, but Jon steps up with the ultimate guilt trip. He points out there are exactly 5 pups for the 5 true-born Stark kids, leaving himself out because he is a bastard. It works flawlessly, but the best part is Jon finding a hidden 6th pup right after. It is a completely white outcast with blood-red eyes, perfectly meant for the outcast son. The king is dragging half his court to the frozen north, and it spells absolute disaster for the Starks. Catelyn just dropped the heaviest news on Ned while he was chilling in the creepy Godswood, cleaning his giant sword. Jon Arryn, the guy who was basically a second father to Ned, is suddenly dead. Now King Robert is packing up his royal entourage, including those toxic Lannisters, and heading straight for Winterfell. Ned is hyped to see his old best friend, but Catelyn is absolutely terrified. They just found a dead direwolf with a stag antler shoved through its throat. The king's arrival isn't a friendly reunion, it is the literal beginning of the end for the North. Your own brother selling you to a terrifying warlord for a crown is the ultimate betrayal. That is exactly what happens to 13-year-old Daenerys Targaryen. She is living in exile and just wants a normal life, but her brother Viserys is obsessed with taking back the Iron Throne. He dresses her in silk and drags her to meet Khal Drogo, a massive, undefeated warrior who absolutely terrifies her. When she begs to go home, Viserys straight up tells her he would let Drogo's entire army and their horses have her if it meant getting his kingdom back. She is forced to dry her tears and smile, realizing her own flesh and blood is the real monster. Being offered the second most powerful job in the world is actually the ultimate trap. King Robert shows up in the freezing north after 9 years just to see his old best friend, Ned Stark. But this isn't a friendly reunion. Robert drags Ned down into the Dark family crypts to drop a massive bomb. He wants Ned to be Hand of the King, basically running the entire realm, while Robert drinks himself into an early grave. He even throws in a royal marriage proposal to seal the deal. Ned feels a terrible sense of dread because he knows the truth. Sometimes the highest honors are just a one-way ticket to your own destruction. The most brutal life advice you will ever hear comes from the most disrespected guy in the room. Jon Snow is sitting outside a massive party, feeling sorry for himself for being an outcast. He is literally crying in the dark when Tyrion Lannister drops in. Tyrion is constantly mocked by his own powerful family, but he looks at Jon and drops absolute wisdom. He tells him to never forget what he is, because the world definitely will not. He says to take that weakness, wear it like armor, and make it your strength so nobody can ever use it to hurt you. When you completely own your biggest insecurities, you instantly become untouchable. A secret message hidden inside a wooden box is the exact moment the Stark family is doomed. Ned Stark actually wanted to reject the king's job offer and stay chilling in the north. But then a hidden letter arrives from Catelyn's sister, claiming the Lannisters murdered the previous Hand of the King. Catelyn totally panics and pushes Ned to go south to uncover the truth, splitting up their entire family. She even uses this chaotic moment to finally kick Jon Snow out of Winterfell, forcing him to join the Night's Watch. Ned thought he was protecting his family by leaving, but he was actually walking straight into the deadliest trap in Westeros. Being the family tomboy is a literal trap when your sister is a perfect princess. While Sansa was sewing flawless stitches and crushing on Prince Joffrey, Arya was getting roasted by her teacher for having blacksmith hands. So she bolted. She grabbed her direwolf and ditched the sewing circle to watch the boys fight in the courtyard. But the double standards hit hard there too. Her brother Jon reminded her that girls do not get swords, just as that arrogant brat Joffrey started humiliating her brother Robb. Running away feels great in the moment, but for Arya, the ultimate boss fight was already waiting for her right back in her bedroom. A 7-year-old boy just got shoved out of a castle window for accidentally uncovering the Queen's darkest secret. Bran treats the deadly rooftops of Winterfell like his personal playground. His mom always warned him he would fall, but he never listened. While scaling an abandoned tower, he swings upside down to peek through a window and catches the absolute worst thing imaginable. The Queen is hooking up with her own twin brother. She spots him and completely freaks out. The brother actually pulls Bran up to the ledge to safety first. But then he looks at his sister, mutters about the things he does for love, and casually pushes the kid backward into empty air. Sometimes minding your own business is literally a matter of gravity. Tyrion Lannister figured out his siblings tried to off Bran Stark just by watching them sweat over breakfast. While the castle mourns Bran falling from the tower, Joffrey is being a massive brat. Tyrion literally slaps him across the face twice to make him show the Starks some basic respect. But the real power move happens next. Tyrion casually mentions to Jaime and Cersei that Bran might actually wake up from his coma. He catches their terrified split-second eye contact. Jaime tries to play it off, saying death would be a mercy anyway. Tyrion just smirks and says he cannot wait to hear what the kid has to say when he wakes up. He completely cornered them without making a single direct accusation. Catelyn Stark telling Jon Snow he should have died instead of Bran is the most toxic goodbye ever. Jon is leaving for the Wall and just wants to see his comatose brother one last time. Instead, his stepmom hits him with pure venom. He walks out, shakes off the trauma, and says peace to Robb. But the absolute best part is his secret goodbye to Arya. He sneaks into her room and hands her a custom-forged sword. He drops the legendary advice to stick them with the pointy end, and they name the blade Needle. Getting rejected by your stepmom hurts, but arming your little sister for rebellion is the ultimate flex. Daenerys Targaryen's wedding day was a literal nightmare that actually unlocked her inner dragon. Imagine being sold by your toxic brother to a massive warlord and forced to sit through a wild outdoor ceremony where warriors are literally fighting to the death. She was absolutely terrified, but the vibe shifts when she receives 3 petrified dragon eggs and a gorgeous silver horse. Riding that horse gave her the very first taste of real freedom. The wildest part is her terrifying new husband. Instead of being a monster, Drogo actually shows her unexpected gentleness. She went into that night as a frightened pawn, but she took control and finally realized she is the blood of the dragon. Ned Stark walked in on the ultimate betrayal, and King Robert treated it like an absolute joke. Ned finally confronts Robert about giving massive power to Jaime Lannister, dropping a heavy secret from the rebellion. Right after Jaime slit the Mad King's throat, Ned rode into the throne room and found the Kingslayer just chilling on the Iron Throne with a bloody sword. To Ned, this was the ultimate disrespect. But Robert just bursts out laughing, saying Jaime was probably tired and needed a place to sit. It was the exact moment Ned realized his strict northern honor meant absolutely nothing in a kingdom that only cared about power. Tyrion Lannister completely shattered Jon Snow's biggest illusion in the middle of a freezing forest. Jon actually thought he was joining a noble brotherhood at the Wall. Instead, Tyrion hits him with the brutal reality. The Night's Watch isn't for heroes, it is a dumping ground for thieves, criminals, and unwanted bastards. Jon gets so furious he almost swings on him, and his giant direwolf actually knocks Tyrion into the dirt. But instead of throwing a rich kid tantrum, Tyrion just laughs it off. They end up bonding over being the ultimate outcasts of their powerful families. Sometimes it takes the most cynical guy in the room to force you to accept your own harsh reality. A mother's intuition and a savage wolf attack just uncovered the biggest conspiracy in Westeros. Catelyn Stark was rotting away in her comatose son's room until an assassin showed up to finish the job. Someone set a fire outside as a distraction, but Catelyn fought the guy off bare-handed, literally grabbing his blade to save Bran. Then, Bran's direwolf casually rips the dude's throat out. But here is the crazy part. The assassin dropped a super rare Valyrian steel dagger. Catelyn puts the pieces together and realizes Bran didn't just fall from that tower. The Lannisters pushed him. Now she is sneaking off to King's Landing to expose the royal family, and the real war is about to begin. The ultimate fairy tale date just ended in a bloody sword fight and a giant wolf attack. Sansa thought she was living the dream, riding with her golden prince Joffrey. That illusion completely shatters when they catch her little sister Arya playing with a butcher's boy. Trying to flex, Joffrey pulls a real blade on the unarmed kid. Arya steps in, and when Joffrey actually tries to slice her, her direwolf tackles the prince and shreds his arm. Arya literally chucks his fancy sword into the river. When Sansa tries comforting her whimpering prince, he glares at her with pure disgust. Turns out, the handsome royal is actually just a pathetic coward. A spoiled prince just got an innocent pet, and a little boy murdered over a bruised ego. Arya Stark is finally found and dragged before the king. Joffrey straight up lies about their fight, playing the victim. When Sansa is called to testify, she freezes, refusing to back up her sister just to protect her toxic crush. Since Arya's wolf is missing, Cersei demands Sansa's completely innocent wolf take the fall. The king actually caves. Ned does the heartbreaking deed himself, so the animal doesn't suffer. But the real gut punch hits right after. The hound rolls up with the innocent butcher's boy, chopped in half just for running away. In this world, the truth means absolutely nothing. Every flight begins with a terrifying fall. Imagine being trapped in a coma dream, plunging toward jagged ice spikes where thousands of others have already died. A creepy three-eyed crow gives Bran a brutal ultimatum to fly or die. As he drops, he sees visions of his family in danger and a massive frozen wasteland up north. He realizes he has to survive because winter is coming. Right before hitting the deadly ice, he spreads his arms and soars. The crow pecks his forehead, snapping him awake. He cannot feel his legs anymore, but his giant direwolf is right there waiting. He looks at his brother and finally names the wolf Summer. The knife that almost killed Bran Stark belonged to the absolute last person you would expect. Catelyn Stark sneaks into King's Landing, desperate to find out who sent an assassin after her boy. She thinks she is being stealthy, but the Master of Whisperers already knows she is there. She gets dragged into a secret meeting with her childhood friend Littlefinger. When she slams the Valyrian steel blade on the table, Littlefinger drops a massive bombshell. He recognizes the weapon because it actually used to be his. He lost it betting on a jousting match, and the guy who won it was none other than Tyrion Lannister. The entire war for Westeros literally started over a bad bet. Jon Snow was actually the biggest bully at the wall before a massive reality check changed his entire personality. He showed up to the Night's Watch, acting like an arrogant lordling, effortlessly beating up untrained recruits. He was miserable and alone until the armorer completely humbled him, pointing out Jon was just beating up poor farmers who never had professional sword training. Right after this wake-up call, Jon gets a letter saying his paralyzed little brother Bran finally woke up. The news makes him so insanely happy that he drops his ego and offers to train the exact guys he just humiliated. He finally bonds with his new brothers in black, but by publicly roasting his drill instructor to make them laugh, he accidentally creates his worst enemy. Ned Stark's first day at his new job literally ends in a brothel with a murder weapon. He rolls into King's Landing exhausted, only to find out the king is throwing a ridiculously expensive party, while the crown is 6 million gold pieces in debt to the Lannisters. But the real kicker happens when Littlefinger sneaks him into a shady brothel. His wife Catelyn is secretly hiding there with a Valyrian steel dagger. She reveals someone used it to try and assassinate their comatose son, and all signs point to the Lannisters. Ned instantly realizes he isn't just fixing a broken government, he is standing on the edge of an all-out war. The smartest guy in Westeros just realized the apocalypse is actually real. Tyrion Lannister visits the Wall, cracking jokes, dismissing the Night's Watch as a frozen dumping ground for criminals. The commander literally begs him to warn the king that they are severely understaffed and terrifying things are waking up in the ice. Tyrion promises to pass the message, knowing his family will just laugh it off. But then he takes a freezing ride to the very top of that massive ice wall. Looking out into the pitch-black haunted forest with Jon Snow, the jokes finally stop. Hearing wolves howl into the endless dark, he realizes the monsters are coming and absolutely no one is ready. Ned Stark catching his 9-year-old daughter with a secret sword and hiring her a combat tutor instead of grounding her is peak parenting. Arya is absolutely miserable in King's Landing. She is beefing with Sansa, traumatized by her friend's murder and refusing to be a proper lady. She locks herself away with her hidden blade, Needle. When Ned busts in, you would expect a massive punishment. Instead, he recognizes her wild wolf blood. He warns her that winter is coming and hands the sword right back. The next day, he brings in a master water dancer to train her. Sometimes protecting your kids does not mean shielding them from the world. It means teaching them exactly where to stick the pointy end. Daenerys Targaryen completely flipped the script on her toxic brother and realized she was the actual boss all along. At first, riding across the Dothraki Sea was pure torture. She was covered in blisters and crying herself to sleep every night. But after having wild dreams about a blood-red dragon, something inside her snapped. She got strong. When her whiny brother Viserys tried to attack her, she didn't just fight back. She had her guards whip him by the throat and made him walk behind her horse like a total peasant. She even took control of her marriage with Khal Drogo, making him look her in the eyes. By her 14th birthday, she wasn't a scared little girl anymore. She was a fierce Khaleesi, carrying the next Dothraki heir. Everyone left a paralyzed Bran Stark behind, but his family's worst enemy gave him his freedom back. Stuck in bed after his terrible fall, Bran feels completely useless, while his teenage brother Robb tries to play Lord of the Castle. Then Tyrion Lannister rolls up. Even though the Stark wolves literally try to eat him, Tyrion hands over custom blueprints for a special saddle, just so Bran can ride again, simply because he has a soft spot for broken things. Robb acts tough in public to protect his family, but the second he is alone in the dark with Bran, he completely breaks down, crying. It proves that while the adults are busy playing politics, the kids are the ones left picking up the pieces. The absolute worst mistake you can make is trusting the guy who literally tells you not to trust him. Ned Stark is trying to solve a sketchy murder, but he is completely out of his depth. He thinks he can just ask around until Littlefinger pulls him to a window and shatters his reality. He points out that the random kid sharpening a sword and the guard on the wall are actually spies tracking Ned's every move. When Ned admits he still trusts his own crew, Littlefinger just laughs. He drops the coldest reality check ever, telling Ned that distrusting him was the smartest thing he has done since arriving. If you are not paranoid, you are already dead. A father literally threatened to hunt his own son like an animal just because the kid liked reading books instead of fighting. That is the insane reason Samwell Tarly ended up at the freezing wall. When this terrified guy showed up, the drill instructor immediately ordered the recruits to beat him bloody. But Jon Snow wasn't having it. After hearing how Sam's dad forced him into exile under threat of murder, Jon stepped up. He rallied the other outcasts, even using his massive direwolf to threaten a bully in his sleep, ensuring nobody ever touched Sam again. They started as a bunch of miserable rejects, but together they built the ultimate brotherhood. The former Hand of the King was murdered just for finding a teenage blacksmith. Ned Stark is trying to solve his mentor's sudden death, and the trail leads him straight to a sweaty armor shop in King's Landing. There he meets Gendry, a stubborn apprentice forging a steel bull helmet. Ned takes one look at the kid's thick black hair, ice blue eyes, and massive jawline, and the truth instantly clicks. This isn't some random orphan. He is King Robert's secret bastard son, hidden away by a mysterious lord with a bag of gold. Ned finally knows what his predecessor was looking for. Now he just has to figure out why a forgotten royal bastard was worth a death sentence. Catelyn Stark just pulled off the most legendary tavern trap in history. She is traveling in secret, trying to stay off the radar, when Tyrion Lannister strolls right into her inn and spots her. Instead of panicking, she completely flips the script. She looks around the crowded room and realizes it is packed with soldiers sworn to her father. She calls them out one by one, reminding the Brackens, Wentz and Freys exactly who they serve. Then she drops the bomb, publicly accusing Tyrion of trying to murder her son, and orders his immediate arrest. Seeing the panic on his face as a dozen swords are drawn at once is the ultimate mic drop. The scariest guy in Westeros got his face melted off by his own brother over a wooden toy. Sansa Stark is at a massive tournament, totally obsessed with the fairy tale idea of noble knights. Then the Hound corners her in the dark and completely shatters that illusion. He forces her to look at his ruined face and drops the darkest backstory ever. When he was just a kid, his giant brother Gregor caught him playing with his toy knight. Gregor didn't even yell. He just shoved Sandor's face into burning coals and held him there. The sickest part is their dad covered it up, and Gregor actually got knighted. It proves the biggest monsters aren't hiding in the shadows. They are the ones wearing shiny white armor. The king's wife literally just tried to orchestrate his murder in the middle of a massive sports tournament. Ned Stark just realized Queen Cersei used reverse psychology to push King Robert into fighting in the melee. In a chaotic free-for-all with 40 guys swinging weapons, a fatal accident is incredibly easy to fake. Robert only survived because Ned talked him out of it. But it gets crazier. A disguised spy master sneaks into Ned's room to drop a massive bombshell. The last guy who held Ned's job was poisoned with a traceless toxin by his own squire. And the scariest part is, he was murdered simply because he started asking the wrong questions. Getting kidnapped by your worst enemy is bad, but saving her life to prove you were framed is a whole different level of crazy. Tyrion Lannister is dragged through the deadly mountains by Catelyn Stark, who thinks he ordered a hit on her son based on Littlefinger's lies. Suddenly, savage mountain clans ambush their crew. Instead of running, Tyrion grabs an axe, jumps into the bloodbath, and actually saves Catelyn from getting taken out. Surviving the chaos earns him his weapons back and the chance to drop the ultimate truth bomb. Littlefinger played her because a Lannister absolutely never bets against their own family. Arya Stark uncovered the biggest treason in Westeros just because she was chasing a stray cat. Getting lost in the pitch-black dungeons of the Red Keep, she overhears two shadowy figures plotting the assassination of her father, Ned Stark. They whisper about a pregnant princess, a hidden bastard, and how the wolf and lion will soon tear each other apart. Terrified, she escapes through a literal sewer and rushes to warn her dad. But Ned totally brushes her off, claiming she just saw some street performers. He ignores the ultimate warning, proving the deadliest secret in King's Landing was dismissed simply because it came from a barefoot kid. Ned Stark literally threw away the most powerful job in the world to save a pregnant teenager he never met. King Robert completely lost his mind at a council meeting, demanding the assassination of Daenerys Targaryen and her unborn baby. While the rest of the room cowardly agreed, Ned refused to back a hitman. He called out his best friend, slammed his badge on the table, and walked out. He was packing his bags to flee to Winterfell before Robert could put his head on a spike. But right as he is about to escape, Littlefinger drops in with an offer he cannot refuse, promising to take Ned to a secret brothel that holds the missing clue to a massive murder mystery. Catelyn Stark just survived a literal death mountain, only to find out her sister has completely lost her mind and is still breastfeeding her 6-year-old son. After dragging her prisoner, Tyrion Lannister, through brutal bandit attacks and up a terrifying pitch-black cliff, Catelyn thought she was finally safe at the Eyrie. She expected to find a powerful ally ready to help her fight the Lannisters. Instead, her sister Lysa is furious she brought a prisoner to her door and is totally detached from reality. While Catelyn tries to talk survival and strategy, Lysa is just nursing her giant toddler. The wildest part is this spoiled kid is actually the lord of the castle, and his favorite game is making people fly to their deaths. Taking the fall for your wife's mistakes will literally cost you everything. Ned Stark is walking through the pouring rain when Jaime Lannister rolls up with a squad of guards, furious that Ned's wife kidnapped his brother. Instead of throwing her under the bus, Ned claims he ordered the capture himself. Huge mistake. Jaime knows he cannot kill Ned without risking his brother, so he takes a much darker revenge. He orders his men to butcher Ned's vastly outnumbered crew right in front of him. Ned's leg is completely crushed under his falling horse during the brutal street fight. He wakes up alone in the bloody mud, cradling his dead best friend. Being the honorable guy in a corrupt world just guarantees you lose. Daenerys Targaryen just realized her brother is a complete fraud, and she is the actual dragon. Arriving at the Dothraki capital, Viserys is still acting like an entitled brat, complaining about everything while demanding a crown. Dany actually tries to be nice, gifting him custom clothes so he stops looking like a beggar. Instead of saying thanks, he throws a tantrum and physically attacks her. But Dany is done playing the victim. She grabs a heavy bronze belt, smacks him right in the face, and kicks him out. Curling up with her dragon eggs and feeling her baby kick, she finally understands the truth. Viserys is just a weak boy, and the real power was inside her all along. A relaxing ride in the woods turned into an absolute bloodbath for the Stark boys. Bran was just testing his new saddle after his fall, finally getting some freedom. But things went south fast when a crew of wildlings and Night's Watch deserters ambushed them, trying to take Bran hostage. Robb didn't hesitate. He and their massive direwolves completely shredded the attackers in seconds. It was pure chaos. One guy had a blade right to Bran's throat until Theon Greyjoy nailed him with a ridiculously risky arrow. They survived and took a prisoner, but this brutal fight was the ultimate wake-up call that the real danger was finally spilling over the wall. Talking your way out of a death sentence is the ultimate flex. Tyrion Lannister is locked in a freezing sky cell, missing a whole wall with a massive drop to nothing. The floor even slopes toward the edge, just to drive him insane. After taking a brutal beating, he uses his only remaining weapon, the promise of endless gold. He bribes the guard for an audience with the lords who want him dead. Instead of confessing, he demands a trial by combat. They try to force him to fight their top knight, but he asks the crowd for a champion instead. a random mercenary steps up to take the job, proving that deep pockets are the best survival skill you can possibly have. King Robert won the throne, but lost the only thing he actually wanted. Ned Stark wakes up from a 6-day coma after dreaming about the bloody Tower of Joy showdown. He is busted up and just wants to go home. Instead, Robert rolls in with Cersei, sparking pure toxic drama. Cersei talks trash, Robert slaps her, and then completely breaks down. He confesses that even though he killed Rhaegar Targaryen, Rhaegar still won. Rhaegar gets Lyanna in death, while Robert is stuck with a wife he despises. Unable to cope, Robert forces the hand badge back onto a trapped Ned, proving that surviving the Game of Thrones is way worse than dying in it. Armor means absolutely nothing if you cannot catch the guy you are trying to kill. Tyrion Lannister just finessed his way out of an execution using a trial by combat. He gets Bronn, a lightly armored sellsword, to fight a fully plated knight. All the rich snobs think Bronn is toast. Instead, he just dances around, letting the knight completely exhaust himself, swinging a heavy sword. Once the knight is totally gassed, Bronn literally drops a marble statue on him and finishes the job. Tyrion wins his freedom, but the crazy lady in charge kicks them out onto the deadliest road in the realm. Sometimes winning just buys you a completely different death sentence. The smartest thing Jon Snow ever did had absolutely nothing to do with a sword. When Jon gets promoted in the Night's Watch, he knows his friend Sam will get slaughtered in training without him. So he sneaks out to wake up the blind Maester Aemon and drops the hardest metaphor ever. He explains that a chain needs all kinds of metals to work, just like the watch needs all kinds of people. You cannot beat tin into iron, but tin is still useful. Sam cannot fight, but he can read, do math, and manage ravens. By proving that brains matter just as much as brawn, Jon saved his best friend's life and completely changed the future of the realm. The ultimate flex in a life or death situation is buying the people trying to kill you. Tyrion Lannister and his bodyguard Bronn are ambushed in the mountains by deadly clansmen. Bronn is ready to fight to the death, but Tyrion knows his mouth is his best weapon. When a giant threatens to chop him to pieces, Tyrion doesn't flinch. Instead, he casually roasts their terrible weapons, telling them his family's blacksmiths literally poop out better steel. He doesn't just negotiate his survival, he promises to give these outlaws an entire kingdom to conquer. That is how you weaponize being rich. Ned Stark signed his own death warrant the second he sat on the Iron Throne and tried to be a good guy. With King Robert off hunting, Ned takes over just as villagers report brutal raids by the Mountain, Tywin Lannister's giant mad dog. Instead of playing the political game, Ned strips the Mountain of his titles and sentences him to death. But here is where he totally fumbles. He refuses to let Loras Tyrell lead the hunting party, throwing away a massive Tyrell alliance. Then he insults the royal executioner by bypassing him completely. Ned thought he was just delivering pure justice, but in King's Landing, doing the right thing is exactly what gets you killed. A teenage girl's temper tantrum accidentally exposed the biggest royal scandal in history. Sansa Stark was just trying to defend her toxic crush, Prince Joffrey. Her dad, Ned, is fed up with the danger in King's Landing and tells Sansa and her sister Arya he is shipping them back to Winterfell. Sansa absolutely loses it. She cries about wanting Joffrey's golden-haired babies. When Arya argues Joffrey is a stag, not a lion, Sansa screams that Joffrey is nothing like his drunken dad, King Robert. That one bratty comment makes the puzzle pieces click in Ned's brain. Sansa's teenage obsession just accidentally proved the king has no true heirs. Ned Stark literally signed his own death warrant because he felt bad for his enemies' kids. After doing some serious digging, Ned figures out the ultimate royal scandal. King Robert's blonde children are actually the product of Queen Cersei and her twin brother Jaime. Instead of snitching to the king immediately, Ned tries to be the honorable guy. He pulls Cersei aside and warns her to take her kids and flee the continent before Robert returns. Cersei does not even blink. She admits to everything, refuses to run, and drops the hardest reality check ever. She tells him that when you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die. Ned thought he was showing mercy, but he was really just giving her the head start she needed to destroy him. Begging for a golden crown is all fun and games until your brother-in-law melts it directly onto your skull. Viserys crashed a sacred Dothraki feast completely wasted, waving a sword where weapons are strictly banned. He pointed a blade at his pregnant sister, Daenerys, demanding the crown Khal Drogo promised him. Drogo did not even blink. He casually agreed, melted down his own massive gold belt in a fire pit, and dumped the boiling liquid metal right over Viserys' head. No blood was shed, keeping the city rules intact. Daenerys just watched, completely unbothered, realizing one brutal truth. Fire cannot kill a true dragon. Ned Stark literally rewrote the king's dying wish because he couldn't stomach a lie. King Robert gets absolutely shredded by a wild boar and uses his last breath to name Ned Protector of the Realm until his son Joffrey comes of age. But Ned knows Joffrey is the product of Lannister incest. While writing the will, Ned secretly changes "my son" to "my heir." It is a massive power play, but Ned is too obsessed with honor to back it up. He turns down a literal army from Renly and instead trusts Littlefinger to bribe the city guards. Wearing your honor like armor sounds great until you realize it just weighs you down while everyone else plays dirty. Jon Snow almost threw away his entire destiny because he refused to do laundry. When the Night's Watch assignments drop, Jon expects to be a badass ranger, but gets named a glorified servant instead. He is ready to quit until Samwell Tarly drops a massive reality check. Sam realizes the Lord Commander specifically asked for Jon to keep him close, secretly grooming him for leadership. Jon swallows his pride, heads beyond the wall to a creepy grove of bleeding trees, and officially takes his vows. But the exact second he finishes his oath, his direwolf, Ghost, trots out of the dark woods, carrying a severed hand. Welcome to the Night's Watch, where your first day on the job literally starts with a dead body. Trusting the wrong guy will literally get your entire squad wiped out in seconds. Ned Stark just found out the king is dead and marches into the throne room to take control. He has a legal letter naming him Protector of the Realm, but Cersei rips it to shreds and tells him to bow to Joffrey. Ned refuses and calls out Joffrey's fake claim to the throne. He thinks he has the ultimate backup because Littlefinger bought off the city guards. But when Ned orders the Queen's arrest, the guards turn and slaughter his men instead. Littlefinger slides a dagger under Ned's chin, proving that playing by the rules is exactly what gets you killed. A wooden sword and a dancing master were the only things standing between a little girl and a brutal massacre. Arya Stark is practicing footwork when Lannister guards crash the room to take her hostage. Her teacher literally fights off armored knights with a wooden stick so she can escape. She runs into a castle on total lockdown, surrounded by dead bodies. When a stable boy tries to grab her for a reward, all her fancy training vanishes. She just remembers one rule: stick them with the pointy end. She drives her blade through his gut, catching her very first body. The innocent kid is officially gone, replaced by a survivor who knows fear cuts way deeper than swords. Sansa Stark betrayed her own father just to save her toxic engagement to Joffrey. While the Lannisters are literally slaughtering her household, she is locked in a tower, completely oblivious. Instead of realizing she is a hostage, she begs to see the Queen. Cersei and her creepy council sit this terrified teenager down and gaslight her into believing Ned Stark is a traitor. They convince her the only way to save her royal romance is to write letters begging her family to bend the knee. Blinded by fairy tale dreams, she actually does it. She seals her family's doom, goes back to her room to read romance books, and right as she falls asleep, realizes she completely forgot to even ask if her little sister Arya was still alive. Dead men do not stay dead at the wall. Jon Snow and his crew find 2 missing rangers in the woods, but the bodies are completely wrong. 0 blood, no rot, and creepy glowing blue eyes. They bring the corpses back to base, which is a massive mistake. That night, Jon's direwolf freaks out. Jon leaves his room to find his guard dead, head twisted backward. He rushes to his boss's bedroom and finds one of the dead rangers up and walking. Swords do absolutely nothing to this zombie. In a total panic, Jon smashes an oil lamp and sets the monster on fire, proving the terrifying bedtime stories about the undead are actually reality. Robb Stark took 12,000 men to fight the exact wrong war. He marched south to smash the Lannisters, leaving his paralyzed little brother Bran behind to rule Winterfell. Bran feels totally useless watching his brother play the hero, but a captured wildling named Osha drops a massive reality check. She tells Bran that Robb is making a huge mistake, taking his sword south where the old gods have no power. The real danger is waking up beyond the wall, and she means dead men with cold blue eyes. Robb rode off to win a throne, completely ignoring the literal apocalypse creeping up behind him. A failed assassination attempt is exactly what it took to change the fate of the world. Daenerys was just browsing a market when a sketchy merchant offered her a free cask of poisoned wine. Luckily, Jorah Mormont realized something was off and demanded the guy taste it first. The dude panicked and tried to run. Turns out, the king put a massive bounty on Dany and her unborn baby. When her husband, Khal Drogo, found out, he completely lost it. Before this, Drogo absolutely refused to cross the ocean. But after someone targeted his wife, he vowed to cross the sea, destroy the armored knights, and conquer the 7 kingdoms. And that poisoner? He got the ultimate punishment of running naked and chained behind Dany's horse. A 15-year-old kid is leading 18,000 men to war, and his mom just crashed his war council to fix his battle plan. Catelyn Stark rolls up expecting her little boy, but Robb now has a beard, a giant direwolf, and the weight of the realm on his shoulders. He's plotting to split his army to trick Tywin Lannister. Robb wants his most fearless brawler to lead the distraction, but Catelyn hits him with a brutal reality check. You don't send a fearless guy to stall a tactical genius. You send someone cold and terrifying. They pivot to Roose Bolton. Robb tries to send his mom safely home, but she refuses. She's riding straight into the war zone. Tywin Lannister is the ultimate manipulator who tricked a mob of bloodthirsty savages into fighting his war. Tyrion rolls up to his dad's pristine military camp with a gang of wild mountain clansmen who literally chop off their own body parts for fun. Tyrion only promised them weapons to keep himself alive, but when these smelly brigands crash Tywin's super serious war council, Tywin doesn't even blink. Instead, he uses pure reverse psychology. He casually drops that the Northern Army is terrifying and his own knights are too scared to face them. Instantly, the clansmen's egos are triggered. They volunteer to lead the charge just to prove they are tougher than Lannister knights, dragging a totally resigned Tyrion right to the front lines with them. Joffrey Baratheon just pulled the ultimate power trip on his very first day as king. He literally fired the most legendary knight alive, making Sir Barristan strip off his armor right in the throne room. Right after that insane drama, Sansa Stark steps up. She is terrified, but completely convinced her royal boyfriend will save the day. She begs for her dad's life, blaming his treason on painkillers. Surprisingly, Joffrey agrees to show mercy, but with a massive catch. Ned Stark must publicly confess and declare Joffrey the true king. Sansa walks away thinking she just saved her father, completely unaware she just handed her enemies the exact weapon they need to destroy him. Playing the Game of Thrones with honor is the fastest way to dig your own grave. Ned Stark is rotting in a pitch-black dungeon, finally realizing his mercy just got King Robert killed. Varys sneaks in disguised as a jailer to drop a massive reality check. Cersei needs Ned to publicly confess to treason and legitimize Joffrey to stop a rebellion. Ned tries to play the honor card and refuses to lie, but Varys knows exactly how to break the most stubborn man in Westeros. He casually reminds Ned that his innocent daughter Sansa is still in Cersei's clutches. In the end, the ultimate manipulator proves that a father's love will always crush a hero's pride. Robb Stark just sold his entire romantic future to cross a single bridge. His army is stuck at the Twins, desperately needing to cross the river to save his family from the Lannisters. The catch is, the bridge is owned by Walder Frey, a bitter 90-year-old dude who holds grudges like a pro. Storming the massive castle is impossible, so Catelyn Stark walks right into the snake pit to negotiate. She secures the crossing, but the toll is absolutely brutal. She basically trades her kids' futures. Arya is promised to a Frey, and Robb has to marry whichever Frey daughter Walder chooses. Robb takes the deal without flinching, splitting his army in the dead of night to pull off the ultimate bait and switch on the Lannisters. The blind old man feeding birds at the wall is actually a secret Targaryen who walked away from the Iron Throne. Jon Snow is having a massive meltdown. His dad is locked up, his brother is marching to war, and Jon is stuck freezing at the wall. He thinks nobody understands the agony of choosing between family and duty. Then Maester Aemon drops a massive truth bomb. He reveals he sat helplessly at the wall while his entire Targaryen bloodline was slaughtered. He tells Jon the brutal reality that love is the death of duty. Every man eventually makes a choice that will haunt him forever, proving the hardest battles are fought entirely in our own minds. Daenerys Targaryen literally ruined her own life just by trying to be a good person. After a brutal Dothraki battle, Dany is riding through the wreckage and sees her husband's men assaulting the defeated village women. Instead of looking away, she snaps. She claims the women as her personal property to protect them from the soldiers, completely defying Dothraki culture. One of the women she saves is a temple healer named Mirri Maz Dur. When Khal Drogo gets a nasty chest wound, Dany trusts this rescued witch to heal him. She thought she was saving innocent lives, but trusting the enemy she just conquered was the exact mistake that cost her everything. Tywin Lannister literally tried to use his own son as human bait, and it completely backfired. He threw Tyrion and his unruly mountain clansmen into the vanguard of a massive battle. Tywin's secret plan was for Tyrion to get slaughtered and trigger a fake retreat, luring the northern army into a deadly trap. Instead, Tyrion actually survived. He fought through the absolute chaos and accidentally ruined his dad's master plan by holding the line. But the real joke was on Tywin. After the dust settled, they realized teenage Robb Stark had played them all. Robb wasn't even on the battlefield. He sent a decoy army to distract Tywin, while his main cavalry secretly rode off to attack Riverrun. The ultimate military mastermind just got outsmarted by a kid. A 15-year-old kid just humbled the deadliest knight in the realm. Robb Stark actually pulled it off. Everyone thought he was just a boy playing at war, but he set a massive trap in the Whispering Wood, using Jaime Lannister's own reckless impatience against him. Catelyn Stark sat in the dark, listening to the absolute chaos echoing through the valley, terrified of losing her son. When the dust settled, Robb rode back, dragging the Kingslayer in chains. Jaime fought like a demon, killing several nobles just trying to reach Robb, but he still lost. Capturing Jaime chopped the head off the snake, but Tywin Lannister is still out there, and this war is just getting started. Daenerys Targaryen literally risked her unborn child to save a man who was already dead. When Khal Drogo falls from his horse from a festering wound, his reign is instantly over. Instead of fleeing, Dany panics and begs a captive witch to use forbidden blood magic to save him. The ritual demands a sacrifice, but things go completely off the rails. Drogo's loyal guards try to stop the dark spell, sparking a brutal sword fight right outside the tent. Amidst this absolute bloody chaos, Dany goes into premature labor. With midwives fleeing in terror, Ser Jorah makes a fatal mistake. He carries a screaming Daenerys straight into the cursed tent with the dancing shadows, sealing her tragic fate forever. The most brutal betrayal in history happened right in front of a little girl hiding in the crowd. Arya Stark was literally surviving on street pigeons when she followed a mob and saw her dad forced to falsely confess to treason. The deal was supposed to be exile, but King Joffrey completely flips the script and orders his head chopped off. Arya actually draws her tiny sword and tries to fight through thousands of people to save him. Before she gets herself killed, a guy from the Night's Watch grabs her, forces her to look away as the blade falls, and immediately starts hacking off her hair to disguise her as a boy. That is exactly how you birth an absolute assassin. Two little kids predicted their father's tragic execution just by dreaming. Bran and his 4-year-old brother Rickon both had the exact same nightmare. A three-eyed crow led Bran into the creepy Winterfell crypts, where he talked to his dad, Ned Stark. Rickon saw him down there too. Their maester totally dismissed them, insisting magic is dead and dreams are just dreams. He even took them to the empty tombs to prove Ned was alive and well. But right after his logical speech, a bloodied raven flies through the window with a letter. Turns out the boys were right all along, and the ancient magic of the North was warning them that their father was already a ghost. Sansa Stark was one split second away from ending Joffrey before his reign even really started. After executing her dad, Joffrey drags a traumatized Sansa up to the castle walls just to force her to look at her father's severed head on a spike. He even has his guards beat her for talking back. Standing near an 80-foot drop, Sansa realizes all it takes is one good shove. She is fully ready to push Joffrey over the edge and fall right along with him to end the nightmare. But right before she makes her move, the Hound steps between them to wipe the blood off her face. He didn't just clean her lip, he secretly saved both of their lives. Daenerys traded her baby's life to save her husband, only to realize she was brutally scammed by blood magic. She wakes up from a wild fever dream to find her world completely shattered. Her newborn son is dead, her army abandoned her, and her fierce warlord husband is just a blind, unresponsive shell. The witch she thought she saved confesses she orchestrated the whole tragedy as revenge for her ruined village. Facing the harsh reality that the man she loves is trapped in an empty body forever, Daenerys makes the heaviest choice imaginable. She takes a silk pillow and smothers him, proving that sometimes true mercy means ending the story yourself. Tywin Lannister just gave his most hated son the ultimate promotion because he secretly thinks his golden boy is dead. Robb Stark absolutely wrecked the Lannister army and captured Jaime, sending the War Council into full panic mode. While everyone else begs to sue for peace, Tywin clears the room and drops a massive bomb on Tyrion. He is sending him to King's Landing to rule the Seven Kingdoms and babysit King Joffrey. Tyrion realizes the twisted truth that he is only the backup plan now that Jaime is gone. Tywin gives one final strict order to leave his mistress behind, but the very first thing Tyrion does is wake her up and tell her they are moving to the capital. Jon Snow almost threw his life away for a war that didn't actually matter. After his dad is executed, Jon snaps, saddles up in the dead of night, and deserts the Night's Watch to join his brother's army. But his friends track him down in the woods and literally surround him, forcing him to ride back. The crazy part is, the Lord Commander knew everything. Instead of executing Jon for treason, he drops the ultimate truth bomb. Whoever sits on the Iron Throne means absolutely nothing when dead men are hunting in the dark. Mormont reveals they are marching beyond the wall in full force to face the real threat. Jon finally realizes his true purpose isn't fighting for a crown, it's saving the entire world. The North just literally broke the Seven Kingdoms in half because they were absolutely sick of southern rulers. Robb Stark and his mom Catelyn just pulled up to Riverrun after capturing Jaime Lannister, and their war council is a total mess. Everyone is arguing over which random Baratheon to support for the Iron Throne. Catelyn is practically begging them to make peace so she can get her daughters back from Cersei. But these lords are entirely out for blood. Great Jon Umber finally stands up, completely rejects the Iron Throne, and says they should just rule themselves. After 300 years of bowing to dragons, the entire room drops to their knees and crowns a teenager the king in the North. Walking into a roaring funeral pyre is a guaranteed death sentence for anyone except the Mother of Dragons. Daenerys just lost her husband, so she builds a massive bonfire. She tosses in his body, her 3 petrified dragon eggs, and the witch who ruined her life. Then she literally walks straight into the raging inferno. Her followers think she has completely lost her mind. But when the fire finally burns out, she isn't a pile of ashes. She is sitting right there in the soot, totally unburnt. She walked into the flames a grieving widow and walked out a god with 3 baby dragons, bringing magic back to the world forever.